Many of us in the room would have had a situation recently where we had cargo on board a vessel who defaulted, declared bankruptcy when we have cargo on board. What kind of legal steps must we take to reduce the impact of such a situation? What kind of recourse do we have in terms of going after the ship owners or who do we go after is the question?
Well, I think you have to take a very practical steps in that situation in the first place. So when it comes to cargo, first of all, actually know your insurance terms. It's amazing how many people you speak to and that don't know the insurance terms. So Institute Cargo Clause 4.6. If there was a possibility that you could have reasonably known that the company goes bankrupt, but you nevertheless thought, well, the banks are going to bail them out, state will bail them out, and then it turns out the company like Hanjin goes bankrupt, you might actually have a problem that your insurance are going to pull out and say, well, you should have known they're going bankrupt. So be careful. So you actually have to go back a few steps before you even book cargoes. Do your due diligence. And a lot of financial information is available online. Look at it. Spread your risk. Don't book, just because you get a very good rate, don't just book your cargo with one carrier. Spread your risk. Always know where the containers are. The big problem with Hanjin that we saw is that a lot of people did not know where the cargo was, where the containers were going. So the initial step that we always say, it's not necessarily legal advice, is manage the situation. Know where your containers are, know what your contract says. And then as the next step, you think, okay, what can I do? In this case, the carrier still has the liability to actually deliver the cargo to the agreed destination, the contractual destination. However, most bills of lading, and unfortunately the reverse side of the bill of lading always seems to be an afterthought that people don't really look at. Normal carriers have huge exclusion clauses when it comes to delay, when it comes to transshipment, when it comes to actually delivering the cargo potentially somewhere else. So in that way, I don't really have very good news for the shippers or for the cargo interest. I know I'm not making myself very popular here by saying this, but you have to take practical steps, speak to the carriers, and try and find a solution. Yes, you have a legal course of action potentially against the carrier for damage to the cargo. If it's a perishable cargo, it's inevitably after a while the bananas will go off, sadly. But you have to weigh up how much is it going to cost me to actually pursue the carrier against the likelihood of it being successful, or maybe it's easier to find an amicable solution. And that might mean that you lose some money or just break even, but at least it helps you come out of a situation quicker. I mean, as a lawyer, I shouldn't say don't take a legal course of action. I mean, please do instruct us. But yeah. I think sometimes having a practical, amicable solution is more helpful in these kind of situations.
Yeah, that's true. And in many cases, it may be more of a practical approach that I need to have access to my cargo. So even if I need to spend money on the bond and to transport it separately, I would need to do it because it's more important to get it at the site than let it rust in some port in between.
I mean, a lot of ports have practically held containers or cargo ransom and say, well, you want your container, your cargo back, go and pay us. Can that do it? Probably not. But if they're asking you to pay $2,000, is it worth pursuing them legally? Sometimes it's as hard as it is accepting that, better to find an amicable solution and move on in that sense.
If I may add to that, because that's a good point. We had a lot of ships in Singapore when this happened. And there was about $80 million worth of freight which wasn't paid. And a lot of the shippers elected not to pay it.
Okay.
Yeah, because they didn't have high value cargo on those vessels. If you have an urgent valve for a project, yes, of course you damn make sure you get it there, but if you have a container with ping pong balls, I don't know, maybe they elected to simply order a new one rather than going through a general average proceeding and then wait until those containers get shipped to South Korea where they could eventually pick them up and ship them back and had to pay for all that.
Yes, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.